everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Inforunners podcast. And today we are going to be talking about, well, something a little bit different than we normally do, and we're going to be talking about the best 5 entry-level ships into Star Citizen. I'm Dazan was here.
And this is Hayes. When we're talking about entry-level ships, we're not talking about starter ships. An entry-level ship is a slightly better, different sort of ship. It's like the very early, lower-end ships that you can get into. And in this case, they'd be the best in their weight class. They have hit the best value on a mix of price, versatility, and role.
Yeah, these ships are what you would be going for and starting your career with. And the other big thing that we're looking at also when we're doing this list, besides what Hayes mentioned there, is these ships have to be ships that you're wanting to keep afterwards to fulfill different roles. And that's actually a really interesting thought, because when you think like starter ships or other type of entry-level ships in other games, these are ships that you'll get, fly for a while, and then trade up. So that's an important category right there. And to start off our list, we are going to actually be starting off with the Avenger Titan, which is actually going to be number 5 on our lists, and is actually the cheapest version of it for $50.
Now, the Avenger Titan, unlike many other ships, has a bed. This is actually a really important thing. If you want to go a longer distance or stay online for a longer time, you need the capacity to log out. And, this brings a lot of opportunities. Very important. It's also one of the few sort of ships that is a decent fighter. It's able to take cargo. You can do bounty hunting with it. And heaven forbid, it might actually fit a Nox. It is a very versatile ship. In fact, there is no other ship that is more versatile than the Avenger in its price bracket.
Yes, and the thing about the Avenger Titan specifically is you're looking at a ship that's $50 that's really not too far off from your starter ship level, but also, why would you keep it? Well, if you're a trader, it gives you a good fighter to have. If you're a trader, it also gives you a ship that has some cargo that you can actually use as a mini shuttle. It just gives you that extra versatility that other things in that price point do not have, and is also that type of ship that if you just want to go in there and invest in an entry-level ship, but you don't want to be going into like ridiculous ranges for entry-level ships, this is really that sweet spot of I buy this, and then I earn everything else in game.
And but I still use my Avenger Titan, all the time, because it's that useful of a ship. It just finds a use all the time. It's one of those sort of ships that, even after you've moved up, due to its sort of versatility, it will still continually be a ship you will pick to go out and do things.
Yes, and that leads us to our next pick, which is actually the Banu Defender at number 4. And you're like, holy mackerel, Banu Defender, sell your fighters, sell your fighters. What happened to your advice? Sell your fighters. And it's actually still there, but if you're wanting a ship that represents this class and gives you value, the Banu Defender hands down is it.
Because the Banu Defender is one of the only superiority fighters that sort of ticks all the different boxes. It does things like long range with fuel. It actually has beds. Very few fighters have beds, which make them problematic if you're out for a long time and then you need to be able to log off. It is a multi-crew ship and actually can take 2 people, which is actually a really big deal. It's sort of like a mini runabout away ship. I'm not saying you could take another 2 on the beds and up that to 4, but just by having 2, having those beds, that's really important thing that is often and is not present in all the superiority type fighters that we have at present.
Well, the other thing is,
so this is
it is equipped with alien technology that actually gives it an edge in some ways over what's currently out there, because you usually have with some of your other fighters issues with speed and defensibility, but this ship has all of that too. It's maneuverable, fast, and it's defendable. And unlike your other ship that is in that weight class, you might say, in role, it beats the Vanguard out. It's not even out yet, and it's already beating the Vanguard in the ability to dogfight.
Yeah, it's got the better dogfighting ability. It's got the range. It's got the beds. As it's a much better sort of daily driver just for doing either missions or bounties or as a shuttle. And that's something that no other ship really in that category, in that range, hits the mark. And it certainly is a lot cheaper than a Vanguard as well. So yeah, it's one of those ships. Even if you buy a bigger ship, I guarantee you'll be using this all the time. This would be like your personal shuttle and fighter that will be able to go the longer range. Because unlike a Super Hornet and a Saber, they've got very limited ranges, and they can't log out unless you sort of land it somewhere first. This one hits every box, and that's why this is on this list. This is pick number 4.
Pick number 4. And now for pick number 3, before we reveal it, I'm going to have to say those were the only fighters on this list. So sorry, people who love fighters, but really they're not the best bang for your buck. But if you have to have one, we did need to represent a couple of those. Now we have the epic and most iconic ship in this lineup, which is actually going to be your Constellation Taurus. Right off the bat, best entry-level multi-cruise ship for more than, keyword is more than 4 people.
Well, this ship is more than just a cargo ship. I mean, it has enormous amounts of cargo. It has good defenses, excellent long range. It is very defensible and can take quite a few hits, but it also takes a wide variety of land vehicles, perhaps multiples. It can do that bounty hunting. It can do those land-based missions. There's nothing the ship can't do, but at the same time, it does some of the things it does better than anything else in its weight class.
Modularity, hands down. They're bringing in modularity, and everyone forgets that. It's like, oh, you're buying a Constellation that doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but it has a larger cargo bay, and then you can start upgrading sensors. You can start upgrading the better front for the Aquila. You can start upgrading those pieces, and that then turns this into the best value, hands down.
Well, this is it. They've said that you can take out like the cockpit section of the Aquila and stick it in the other variants. You should be able to swap all of the shielding and the reactors over, and it should not be too much different than them. This is an excellent bang for your ship. The amount of money you're paying, 150 USD for this, there is very few other ships for $150 that gives that sort of a value for what you're paying.
Yes.
Not to mention the versatility.
And the last thing really is, you might want this over your Aquila, because if you can truly swap out, like they've said, those different parts, like the scanner dish and things like that, then this may end up actually making a better Explorer if you can transfer over the fuel tanks, because you have a larger cargo bay, so more ships or cargo plus Ursa.
I can fully see I've got a Phoenix and a Taurus. I can fully see myself switching most of the components between the two and having a quasi Phoenix Taurus based makeup. And because at the end of the day, that quadruple the cargo of the Phoenix with most of the great components. I mean, that's a match made in heaven, you know? That's amazing.
It is. And now we're going to kind of go into oddball territory and actually downgrade ourselves. We started off with the Avenger at the lowest of the price points. Then we jumped up to actually the highest of the actual price points that we're going to be covering. And now we're going to be going down to the number 2 Cutlass.
The Cutlass Black is by far one of the most versatile ships as of late. It's blown all the competition out of the water. It is now the multi-crew, sort of cargo, ground vehicle-esque type ship that's also somewhat decent at combat. And with the new update coming in, I don't see many ships being able to compete. If we're talking about true feature or sort of power creep, the Cutlass is the poster child for power creep.
It's the optimal ship for someone wanting a ship that covers a lot of roles while still, keyword, still being able to have low operating costs. Just look at this thing. If you want to do pirating, yeah, I got it. If you want to do salvage, yeah, I got it. If you want to go just explore, yeah, got it. It's a ship that you don't have to do a lot of planning in, because something like the Constellation Taurus, you're probably going to want to do more planning in, so that way you don't waste money or lose money on an unprofitable run. This ship looks like a ship that you can just say, well, I just want to go do something, and just get friends and be able to go there. So that's where it really has that value. And also, besides all of that being thrown together, modularity wins again, because they've talked about the different modularity. You can start throwing in your stuff from your blue or your red, and then you can now say, well, I may have a black, but now I can go do search and rescue. I can now do bounty hunting, and you've now just turned what is this ship into a lot of extra roles.
I don't think there's a job that the Cutlass can't do, to be honest. It's not a career or industry that it can't have a stab at. It really is one of those jack of all trades sort of ships. And at $100, it's hard to beat.
Well, Wally Jr. does point out one thing which actually does make sense for a balancing issue, which will be actually fuel range. And when you actually think about that, that really does give something like your Taurus a little bit more of a role right there, because you have cargo ship. If you want to do cargo runs, you can definitely do more cargo in the Taurus, but now you have the ability for longer range. So range is definitely a good issue there. And now let's talk about number one, which is something that if you have the chance to, and Gamescom's coming up, I don't know if they're going to have it out there, it is one of my all-time favorite ships. It is the
Retaliator base.
Keyword is base model. Everyone's like, Hallie. No, the base model. The base model is the best value of any ship in the game, really. You're getting a military-grade ship at 150. Yes, it doesn't have your torpedo bays already installed, but it can do so much, and it's actually your entry-level version to your person movers with the right modules.
Well, when you think about it, this has the same amount of cargo, very similar to a normal Constellation, except it's not a... It can do a lot more than that. It is one of the only ships that is like pure military and focused, like pure tactical with the warheads and the torpedoes. But it can also then do 100% trade and sort of be effective at it and economical and longer ranged. It also has other options, such as the living quarters, which would do people transport. The dropship based one. There's so many different options, especially with ship modularity coming in. The Retaliator base for 150 is a very good value ship, and the versatility is just, yeah, it's there.
And there's several things that a lot of people really don't think about. They mentioned on one of the around the verses something about the auto turrets having remote those turrets that are just kind of like, oh, we can just target on their own. Smart. Just imagine dropping your crew requirements there, being able to fly this with one or two people optimally, and run cargo. It's less crew capacity than, let's say, your Taurus, yet has better defensibility, able to go into dangerous space. And if you look at the Connie versus a Tally, if you ever get to fly it, it's way more maneuverable. So it literally checks all the boxes, and you can also mix and match modules too. And a lot of people really don't seem to grasp that the Tally could have, let's say, your dropship module and then be able to have some torpedoes still. Or you have some torpedoes and are able to carry cargo. It just has that type of versatility, mix and match, that you can tailor yourself to every mission there.
I won't be surprised if they allow you to make it more of a missile boat and drop out the torpedoes and end up putting the missile racks in. More than anything, the Retaliator is due for a rework. Not on the schedule, unfortunately, but when they finally do rework it, I imagine the interior, along with the turrets, may be re-implemented or redesigned, because this was the most earliest implementation of them thinking how turrets would work in this game. And I wouldn't be surprised if they reduced the number of turrets, but increased the hardpoint sizes actually on the remaining turrets in order to lower the crew requirements.
Well, now that we finished the list, let's take a look at some of the comments here. And I'm going to have to say, Wally Jr., we did not put the Freelancer on the list. I'm really sorry about that, but when compared to everything else on the list, the poor Freelancer gets left behind. You have the Cutlass, which we talked about. Just at the same weight class right there, the Cutlass easily wins out on versatility, roll, and what it can do.
And not only that, maneuverability, the weaponry being like on par now, and you know, at the end of the day, the Freelancer, unless they give it a serious sort of rework, it's a hard pick to pick a Freelancer over the Cutlass. And then you say, okay, well, you got the Freelancer Max. That's like, you know, considerably more cargo. Why wouldn't you go for the Taurus? It's like it's nearly double that.
Or the Retaliator base if you ever get a chance. I mean, that's the issue with some of these ships in Star Citizen, and they really need to start working some of that out. Is there's a lot of ships that outshine other ships, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but when you're looking at investing into a game with real world, you're going, you have to go this ship or this ship. Well, I love this ship, but this other ship makes more sense.
It may change. Everything changes in Star Citizen, so I don't think we're going to see a Freelancer rework anytime soon, because there's so many other ships that need reworks. Retaliator. But you know, they'll eventually get to it, and we'll know for sure when they start working on the Der and the Max and the Miss.
Ah, yes. And of course, Killseth mentions the Banu Merchantman should be number one, and that actually did not necessarily make this list as a...
I stuck it on the list, and he wanted to take it off. You're completely right. The old price of the Banu Merchantman at 250 is the best bang for buck that Star Citizen has ever offered. From pure cargo to weapons to multi-crew, and due to the serious amount of modularity in ships, you could probably use that for exploration, ground vehicles. You're completely right. The Banu Merchantman, if it was still sold for the old price of 250,
it's not.
It'd probably be the number one. It's not anymore. Maybe you have some friends in your org somewhere that's got one sitting there that's giftable, and he's willing to do a 1-for-1 for what he paid for it. But you know, it is in the past now. It's now 350.
Yes.
The chicken has flown the coop.
I will say this though. Just keep your eye out, because we're planning on having another episode soon talking about our top capital ship investments, and you might see that in that list.
Probably will.
Because it's definitely out of the entry-level class. Hardcore out of it.
Yep.
All right. Well, guys, what do you think? Were we right? Were we wrong? What ships would you like to have seen on this list? Let us know. We love your comments.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always,
see you around.